Hi everyone and welcome to the lecture on dental anxiety. I am Dr. Fawaz Siddiqui. In this particular lecture, we are going to learn how to differentiate between dental anxiety, dental fear and dental phobia. We are also going to look at dental anxiety in more detail in terms of its causes and its complications. And we are going to look at some of the basic management techniques for patients with dental anxiety. So let's jump in. Now, every child during his physical development, mental development also has emotional development, and this emotional development is in terms of how the child is able to handle distress or anger or fear or anxiety and phobia. So, these are basic emotional development which happens as a child, and this is also carried forward into the adult life. So, if you see a person who is having anger issues, an adult who is having anger issues, then you can trace it back to his childhood as he being having temper tantrum when he was a child. So this is a normal emotional development of a child which is carried into the adult life. So basically, emotion is the state of mental excitation. So it's a state of mental being, and it is characterized by physiological, behavioral changes and alterations of feelings. Okay, and this is expressed through bodily movements. That means if you're happy, you're jumping on the bed, or if you're sad, your face will be long, or you want to vocalize your emotions. That you can say it out. Okay, what makes you angry, or don't do this, or don't do that. So typically, emotion is expressed more in terms of distress, anger, fear, and anxiety as big domains. Okay, so let's start to look at anger. So anger is basically an emotional outburst caused by an inability to handle a situation. So you're put into a situation you cannot handle, and then you become angry. Typical example is you have an exam and you have so much to read that you cannot cope up. So you feel very angry at yourself that why did you not study all through the year, and now you cannot cope up, so you feel angry. Then what do you feel like doing? You feel like throwing your books. Okay, so that is also normal, because throwing books or throwing object is a expression of anger. So you can throw books, or you get angry, you hurt yourself, or you start neglecting your task or chores. I don't want to study anymore, finish, I'll give my exam without studying. Okay, so it's just a form of anger. And sometimes you withdraw from your family and friends, and that is how you get into depression. Or otherwise you use abuse or verbal tone, especially with you if you're angry with someone else. So how do you control this if your patient is showing signs of anger in the dental clinic? So first you identify the particular situation, what is making him angry. So most commonly it is the patient wants to pay by card, and your office does not have a machine to accept credit cards or debit cards, you only accept cash. Now the patient feels very angry that why in this era of Industrial Revolution 4.0, this dental office doesn't have a machine to accept a card, and now he has to go find an ATM which may be a distance away, find a parking, get the cash, and come and pay. So he feels angry. Okay, and then he may change the tone of his voice. So you have to first identify the particular situation, and then cause and help not to present that particular situation to the person again. Okay, so next time maybe you want to have some kind of other forms of digital payment, like boost payment or PayPal. Okay, not necessarily by credit card, but you can have other options. So that way you can avoid a patient becoming angry at a situation. Also, the patient who has anger issues can be taught some life skills, and can develop some attitudes to handle situations. So if he gets angry, maybe you just ask him to breathe and relax and calm down, and they say not to worry, you can come and pay me back tomorrow, or you can do a bank transfer, it's okay. So things like that you can help to control anger. Okay, so this is anger. Let's move forward. Fear. Now fear is a reaction to a known danger, and it is a realistic threat to one's experience. So is basically a protective mechanism by the body, and it's telling you not to do something because there is a potential danger of harm. So fear actually develops in when you're born, that is innate fear, that is inbuilt fear, or you have an objective fear, the fear that you have experienced previously, the situation, the danger you have faced previously, or subjective fear. Subjective fear is a fear which is conveyed to you by others. You have not really felt the realistic threat yourself. You have not felt the danger yourself, but it is just told to you by somebody. So, typical example is that you have people tell you that dental dentistry is painful, and then if you have never been to a dentist, you will feel maybe it is indeed painful, but you have not actually faced a dental appointment. You have not been to a dental appointment. Okay, now this same situation, you go for a dental appointment and then you have your tooth extracted and then the experience was very bad. So this is an objective fear. Because you have a bad experience, so you could develop fear of dentistry, so you don't want to go to the dentist anymore. And then you have your innate fear. Okay, and this is something is inbuilt, like small children will have fear of falling. So this is an inbuilt, it's protection, protective mechanism. So there can be these three kinds of fears. So if your patient is exhibiting fear, you need to find out this fear is coming from where. Is it objective fear, previous experience, or it is subjective, or of course if it is innate. And therefore, once you identify, you can control the fear by avoiding the fearful situation. So particularly fear of dentistry causes a problem for us as dentists is because it lowers the pain threshold. So even a touch the patient perceives as painful, and fear is used as a tool to discipline a child. Okay, and very typically you will find mothers telling their children, doctor will give you an injection if you don't sit still. So they're trying to use dentistry as a tool for fear, and therefore children develop fear of dentistry even though they may not have actually experienced dental care. Other causes of fear in dental office and their solution are the fear of pain or its anticipation. So you're anticipating pain, 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 pain. I'm going to have an extraction, so it will be very painful. So it gives you a sensation of fear, lowering your threshold. Betrayal by the dentist or lack of trust in the dentist. Betrayal of dentist is very commonly in the clinics. You tell the patient, "Oh, this will not hurt. This will not hurt. It's okay. It will not hurt. Don't worry. Don't worry." And then actually it hurts. So the patient develops lack of trust in the dentist. He feels betrayed by the dentist, so he doesn't trust you. So you say it will not hurt. So the patient will be very very fearful. Okay, that means something is going to hurt back. And then you have something called as lack of control over the procedure. So in dentistry, the problem is that when the patient is, cannot speak to you because you're working in the patient's mouth for a very close distance, so the patient loses control over the situation, and then he gets fearful that he doesn't want to be in such a situation again. Then fear of unknown. With first timers, you don't know what is going to happen. What does a restoration feels like? What does an extraction feel like? What does a root canal feel like? So the people feel fearful of dentistry, what's going to happen. And of course, fear of intrusion, because is something like you are working in the patient's mouth, so the patient may feel that you're already intruding into his body cavity and you're sitting so close to him, right? Your face is so close to the patient's face, so they fear that this closeness is viewed as violation of personal space. So the people fear dentistry. Oh, I don't want to get a dentist. They get up very close to you. So the common fear-evoking procedures are local anesthesia, very common, extractions, and sound of the drill. So how do people respond to fear? Respond to fear. So there will three levels: at intellectual level, or emotional level, or hedonic level. So typical example that I'm giving you is from pediatric dentistry. That, for example, children, how they respond to fear at intellectual level. The child is ready to accept the fear evoking situation and faces the difficulties to achieve the desired results and benefit, typically seen in adolescent. That means whatever happens, the patient accepts the treatment. Okay, and this is the intellectual level. That means understanding is very good. Whatever the pain or discomfort is going to happen, they take it all in. Okay, then you have your emotional level. Here, the child shows fight or flight response instantaneously. And even in the adults also, they would, suddenly they see the injection, the adult wants to get off the chair and run away, and he doesn't want the treatment anymore. No, 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 just give me medicine, I'm fine. So this is an emotional level where the patient is distressed, and he's showing his distress by either walking away or trying to avoid the situation by fight or flight. Then the last one is the hedonic level. In this, the child or the patient is ready to accept what is pleasant and reject what is unpleasant without too much concern about the outcome or the nature of the procedure. So here the patient may say, okay, is it going is removing the tooth going to hurt? Yes, it's going to hurt. So I don't want to get my tooth removed. Okay, just give me a medicine. Will medicine cause me any problem? The medicine will not cause you any problem. Okay, fine, give me medicine, I don't want to get my tooth extracted. So this is the hedonic level of response to fear. So whenever you're faced with children with fear, just use these three principles. Do not ridicule the patient, because his fear is real to him. Maybe it is ridiculous for you, but it is real to him. So be respectful of that. Identify the cause of the fear. So once you have identified the cause of the fear, you can substitute the fearful object or situation with something less fearful, and you can modify and remove the cause totally. So sometimes it's very common that the patient is very fearful of the dental drill, and then you substitute it, modify it with hand instruments like spoon excavator, and the patient is suddenly more relaxed, and then he allows you to use the drill subsequently. So this brings us to the next one. The next emotional response or emotion is the phobia. A phobia is basically an irrational fear, okay, resulting in the conscious avoidance of a specific feared object, activity, or situation. So basically, it is imaginative and it is irrational. There's no harm in the situation or in the object. So you will feel that the fear is out of the proportion to the stimulus. You will feel that the fear cannot be reasoned, and then it is just being out of your voluntary control. So we have a phobia of medical procedures involving injections and needles, and you have fears of doctors, right? So iotrophobia is fear of doctors. So you just scared of doctors. I just cannot explain why, but you're just scared of the doctor. So it's irrational, okay? And you avoid doctor at any cost. So it cannot be reasoned out, and you just cannot go to a doctor, right? So this is a phobia. So common phobia, the phobias of the spider, phobia of heights, and things like that. But we have for medical procedures and doctors also. The people are there are we have particular terminologies for that. So this is phobia, irrational fear. So dentophobia or odontophobia is the fear of dentist. Okay, and dentists are feared because people feel that dental profession is very cold, unfeeling, and sadistic. That means the dentistry is painful, and the dentist takes pleasure out of your pain. So people have this fear of dentists, and they feel that they are very unfeeling and cold people. Then the pain. People are very sensitive to pain and perceive some dental procedures as very uncomfortable and very painful. So somehow pain and dentistry have been associated for a very very long time, and just the mention of dentistry brings the memory of pain, and then the people want to avoid the dentist. The numbness or the gagging, which people may have because of the difficulty in breathing. So while they are in the supine position, they may find themselves having difficulty in breathing or swallowing, especially after the numbness of the tongue or the numbness of the side of the mouth or the numbness of the lip, and they may feel that things are getting out of control, and then they get very fearful. Then the sound and smell of the dental clinic, especially the dentist office, where you have so many different dental materials that you are using. And typically, if you cut a tooth without a water spray, the smell of the burnt tooth, right? So these are all upsetting to certain patients, and they are very fearful of undergoing a dental treatment. And least not the last, the needles. There are certain group of people who are extremely afraid of injections, sharp objects, and for example, for us, we have to give LA for each and every procedure almost, so the people do not want to have that. So these are some of the causes of odontophobia, that is fear of dentists. Now let us look at anxiety in a little more detail. Anxiety is basically an unpleasant feeling of impending doom or danger from within, rather from the external environment. So this means it is a less severe form of a phobia. The situation is real, but it is you who cannot handle it, right? So you are not able to control it from your emotions from inside. So this is something called as anxiety, and this anxiety is basically a learned process which develops after appearance of fear and emotions. That means once you develop fear and once you develop emotion, then you develop fear, and then you will have the anxiety. For example, anxiety of failing an exam. Okay, so the situation has not happened yet, it may not happen at all, but still you are having this feeling of impending failure. Okay, so this is anxiety. So it depends upon your ability to imagine. So you're now starting to imagine that if I fail the exam, what will happen to me, what will my parents say, what will my friends say. So you have this imagination which is causing you the anxiety. So without imagination there will be no anxiety. So, what are the causes of dental anxiety? Anxiety arising from dental clinics is the uncertainty. What is going to happen? What will happen? What will happen to me? What will the dentist say to me? What will he do to me? What all things will he put into my mouth? So, there is dental anxiety. A previous dental experience by self or the others is again a cause of dental anxiety, where the mother tells his children that you're gonna have a tooth and it's going to be painful, so you know don't be a naughty boy. So subjective fear, and from previous dental experience will be basically objective fear, right? So if you have already been to a dental and for some reason you have not had a pleasant experience, then you will develop anxiety even for a simple procedure as an examination of oral cavity. The patients will feel anxious. Then we have innate biological differences, where boys are supposed to be more macho and they have less anxiety, and the girls are supposed to be more sensitive and they are having more dental anxiety. Then we have poor communication skills, attitude, and behavior of the dental team. So, dental team per se are the people who are the cause of dental anxiety. So, if your receptionist is very rude to the patient, or the dentist himself is having a bad attitude and poor communication skills, the patient may feel losing control over the situation, and then he may have dental anxiety. Then there are always four S that trigger stress in a dental office, that is sight of needle, sight of injection, sight of blood, then sound of dental drills, then smell of the different dental materials, and the sensation, the vibration of dental uh, drill itself. So this brings us to the next question on what are the different types of anxiety. So what you see on your screens are the different type of anxiety, which could be object related, which could be having a general personality and anxiety disorder, but all of this can be linked to dentistry. For example, if you see here, the general anxiety disorders is excessive worry about trivial everyday activities. So going to a dentist for an examination is very trivial, but you for some reason the patient may worry excessively, and then this is called a generalized anxiety disorder. So these disorder like separation anxiety disorder, selective mutism, specific phobia, panic disorder, recurring panic attacks, and worry about having more panic attacks. And then you have social anxiety disorder, an intense fear of having to participate in class or interaction with their peers. So they really are worried of visiting the dentist because they have to talk to the receptionist, they have to talk to the clinical assistant, they have to talk to the dental hygienist, they have to talk to the dentist, they have to talk to the pharmacist. So the whole situation makes a person anxious. So this is some of the general anxiety traits that a person may have. So, if you want to narrow down to the factors associated with dental anxiety from literature, then we have four factors. So, the first one is socio-demographic factors, where females of all age groups were found to be more than having dental anxiety. Children were found to be having more dental anxiety, and people with low level of education were found to be having more dental anxiety. Then those who were having dental anxiety were found to have a poor oral hygiene, and they were also found to have high number of decayed and missing teeth and less number of restored teeth. That means basically dental negligence. And those who had dental anxiety, they were very unhappy with the appearance of the teeth, but they could not do anything about it because they had this anxiety or fear of going to a dentist. So the other factors which are associated with dental anxiety are oral health related behaviors. So people who have dental anxiety, they do not attend regular dental checkups, so they are non-attenders. And then because they do not want to attend, they try to modify their eating habits to bypass or to relieve the pain by themselves. So they avoid eating hard on chewy food to avoid sensitivity to the teeth if they are already having sensitivity, and they will try to self-medicate to avoid visiting a dentist at all. And if everything fails, then only they come to the dentist. And then we have some cultural issues where in some cultures the dental anxiety coping mechanism is engraved into their daily lives, and is expressed among different cultures. For example, if you find people of uh, Africa, right, they are less dental anxiety because they have this strong coping mechanism of having high survival mode. Okay, so they have seen drought, they have seen so much life-threatening situations that dental anxiety is the least concern for them. So in their culture, having teeth examined or teeth extraction is very common. Then we have certain cultures which emphasize on greater self-control, emotional restraint, and compliance to social rules. For example, the Asians, in them also the dental anxiety is compared to be less as compared to the people from America and Europe. So, how do you diagnose dental anxiety? How do you know that person has a dental anxiety? So, there are two ways. One is the subjective assessment, that is where the patient will tell you himself, and the other is the objective assessment, where you can actually measure certain parameters to find out if there is dental anxiety. So, there are a lot of questionnaires available. So, you give these questionnaires. So, the list of questionnaires are here. You can use any one that you want. All of them are validated questionnaire. Give it to the patient. The patient fills it out, and then we have the score system as low, high, or moderate. So depending on this questionnaire, once you know the patient is having high dental anxiety, then you will deal with the patient, manage the patient in another way. While a low patient with low dental anxiety, you may deal with him in another way. So this is how it helps us to understand the level of dental anxiety in the patient, and then you can modify your approach to the patient. The other way is the objective assessment, where you can measure the blood pressure, the pulse rate, the pulse oximetry, oxygen rate, oxygen blood levels. Okay, and because all of these are affected by stress and anxiety. So remember, we talked about emotion is a mental state which is expressed physiologically. So this is the physiologically that we are talking about. Then you can also look at your finger temperature and the galvanic skin response that measures skin conductance of weak electric current as measure of dental anxiety. So a lot of experiments are still going on, non-invasive ways of diagnosing dental anxiety. So it's still open to research. So once you have a patient who is having dental anxiety or who is showing dental anxiety, how would you manage it? So there are some general principles. So for you, you have to be composed. As a dentist, we have to be relaxed and we have to be friendly with the patient. Okay, so that means professionalism which should be very very high. Then we have to avoid being judgmental, or we should avoid instilling pain in the patient. Okay, so for the then patient and dental anxiety may be real to him. Okay, but like I discussed, it may not be real to us. So we do not judge the patient on that, and then we do not do anything which will cause pain to the patient. So we have to always remember, do all the treatment under adequate profound anesthesia. We have to be supportive and encouraging to the patient so that we can help him out overcome his dental anxiety and finally move out of dental anxiety. And we have to work efficiently. That means we have to work fast, and we have to do things right the first time, so no repetition. So we have to be working efficiently. So even if the patient is having a prolonged dental extraction, if you're thinking about, you have to work efficient and do the dental extraction quickly, so that the patient's experience, bad experience, is of lesser duration, which he can forget soon, rather than prolonging the extraction for half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour. So these are the general principles to avoid to deal with patients with dental anxiety. So particularly in children, we have to spare some time, extra time, to communicate with them, try to understand their cause of fear, their cause of dental anxiety. So you just have to give extra appointment time for children. Then you have to avoid the stress triggers, that are the 4S. So don't show an injection to the child, don't show blood to the child. Keep all strong smelling dental materials away from the child, for example eugenol. The sound of the drill or the sound of the patients crying in the other room also is a cause of dental anxiety in children. So try to avoid that by having a soundproof operatory, and then avoid sensation of vibrating instruments. Typically, a good example is using high speed handpiece. So high speed handpiece of good quality will not vibrate and so much as would a handpiece of low quality of made up of low metal, which is going to give you a lot of vibrations and sound. So we need to avoid that. We can use music and videos to distract the child while doing the treatment, and we can also give the child a sense of control over the procedure by involving patients during treatment, like asking the child to raise his or her hand when he feels uncomfortable or if he wants you to stop the treatment. So you can do that. So this one we will deal more in detail when we are looking at behavior management techniques in your pediatric dentistry in the final year, in the fourth year. In children, you can also use some relaxation techniques, especially for the older children who can communicate with you, who can understand your instructions, and who can follow your instructions. There are a lot of relaxation techniques. I have named a few here, and in the further reading section, you can use the literature that I've put to actually investigate what are these techniques and which one is more suitable for your practice. Then we can use conscious sedation, where we sedate the child to complete the treatment, where he forgets about his dental anxiety, he goes into semi-conscious state. Or if the child is really unable to cope up with the dental anxiety, then we may have to do the dental treatment under general anesthesia. So we are going to again learn more about this when we are dealing with behavior management in children. So when it comes to managing adults and older adults, all the techniques that we have discussed for the children are applicable, including general anesthesia, conscious sedation, relaxation techniques, distractions, and all that we have talked about. But you can also have something called as computer-assisted relaxation learning. That means instead of having a therapist to relax you, you can use a computer program or computer app, and the patient can listen to the computer app and relax his body, relax his emotional state, and then the dental anxiety will reduce. And we also can have something called as systemic desensitization. That means if the patient is having anxiety of sitting on a dental chair, then you first introduce him a seat which is not does not look like a dental chair, and then gradually from there go on to the dental chair. So basically, systemic desensitization is desensitizing a patient from a less fearful situation to his the most fearful situation. So it's a process of desensitization. Those who are fearful of needles, we can use computer controlled local anesthesia. The machine is called as one, and the needles are very thin, and the rate of flow of anesthesia is controlled by the computer, and the flow rate is also very slow so that the patient does not feel any discomfort. Then there are another technique of giving painless anesthesia is the electronic dental anesthesia. This you will learn more in detail when we talk about oral surgery. Then we have group therapy. That means the patient really cannot cope with dental anxiety. Then you have to refer the patient to a specialist psychologist or a behavioral therapist who can have group therapy, and then he can find out the innate dental anxiety the patient has and try help the patient to overcome it. So what happens with the dental anxiety? The complication is that the patient fails to keep the appointment. So this is called as a vicious circle. So dental anxiety causes delay or avoidance of the dental care, because of which his oral health status deteriorates, the condition of the teeth deteriorate, and then he has now severe problem, and then the patient feels guilty and shame and is now feeling inferior because now the dentist is going to scold him for coming so late. They should have come earlier, and this causes a symptom driven dental attendance. Only when the patient has pain he comes to you. So the patient feels ashamed of that, and also that the dentist will scold him, and then that further creates dental anxiety. So typical circle goes on, okay, and the patient also starts to self medicate himself and adjust his diet to avoid the dental care just because of dental anxiety. So what happens in a nutshell is the patient fails to keep appointments, the patient does not comply with the prescribed treatment, and then there's poor dental conditions, and all this will affect his quality of life. So the dental anxiety will have specific influences on all the three parties that are involved in the dental care. For the dentist, the dental anxiety may be a cause for the dentist to lose the patient. So dentist cannot handle a dentally anxious patient. The patient will not come to him, and the patient dentist will lose the patient, and he will have a bad reputation because he cannot manage the patient, which may affect his professional image. And of course, the economic implications are there, negative implications are there, and dentists, if you are not conscious about or not aware about the dental anxiety, they may actually contribute to the patient's unpleasant dental experience and reinforce the dental anxiety. So here also the dentist has to be very mindful. uh, Treating a patient who is dentally anxious or who is having dental anxiety, it puts a stress on the dentist and the dental team as a whole to manage that patient, because the patient will be, asking so many questions. He will be trying to avoid certain situations. He is not complying with your instructions, post-operative care, and things like that. So for this is for the dentist. For the patient will want to delay his treatment. He will keep rescheduling his appointments. He will avoid the dental treatment, and because of this, he will only report to you when the dental condition is very bad, which would require complicated treatment. And this complicated treatment will further require long treatment procedures and long follow-ups, and this will cause failure to abide by the instructions or comply to the preventive care, and hence it will further exaggerate the poor health, oral health problems. So for the patient, dental anxiety can cause all this. Now, environment, that is your dental office, can also influence dental anxiety. For example, unfriendly, offensive, and anxiety provoking clinic. Okay, a very dull clinic with a very rude receptionist can provoke or can trigger dental anxiety. Similarly, dental chair and its accessory may not give a good impression. So you're using a very toned down dental chair and very toned down dental stools, and your operatory is really not looking colorful and cheerful. It's going to cause dental anxiety. The patient's going to think, "Oh my God, this dental clinic is like that. What is the dentist going to do?" Then smell of medicaments like eugenol that we talked about, and it's as well as the invasive contacts in the mouth and sound of the drill in the side of the blood, they all cause dental anxiety. So here, your clinic setup and how your clinic is planned is very important, and this much itself can reduce dental anxiety. So, how to prevent dental anxiety? So, from the previous table, we can see that what we can do as a dental team is we can have a positive behavior. Okay, being positive, and it automatically minimizes the dental anxiety of the patient. So, being positive, yes, we can do the treatment. Yes, the treatment will have we will successfully complete it. You don't have to worry about it. So, having the competency will all help in having positive behavior. Then good communication skills. So the patient is having dental anxiety, talking to the patient, finding out the root cause of the dental anxiety, and overcoming it requires good communication skills. And not only that, you have to be sympathetic and you have to be empathetic to understand the patient's point of view, and therefore you must have compassion to help the patient overcome. And in all this process is a time consuming process, so you should not lose your temper and give time to the patient. Okay, so that is what we can do as a dental team. For the patient comes to your clinic with some preconceived ideas, and there will be some personality traits that is inbuilt, things that we cannot change. The patient may have had a bad dental experience, the experience we cannot change, and the patients may also be influenced by family and friends, and something that we cannot change instantaneously. So we have to work through this very carefully in order to identify the preconceived ideas and remove it. If the patient has some personality trait like anxiety disorder, trying to identifying it and helping the patients to overcome it. Past dental experience the patient has had using sedation to complete your treatment, and having pain-free dentistry will erase the past dental experience and will enrich a new good experience. And of course, influence from the family and friends will prove wrong once the patient comes to you and has a painless dental care. So the patient will not trust what he has heard from the family and the friends. Now, in terms of dental environment, we have to avoid white uniforms by using attractive, colorful attire. We have to minimize bright lights. We have to play some soft, relaxing music. We should have some non-dental attractions in the waiting room, some magazines, we can also have a colorful reception and waiting rooms. It adds to the colorful or cheerfulness of the room. We have to minimize noises from the dental instruments and the equipments by soundproofing the operating rooms. Very important. We do not want to uh, people in the waiting room do not want to hear screaming noises from the operator if the patient is having you know painful extraction or something like that. Then we have to hire our receptionist who is having a charming personality, who has a positive outlook to life, and who has a caring attitude towards the patient. So such kind of receptionists are can help you uh, manage a dental anxious patient by talking to the patient in the waiting room. And you can also use aromatherapy. For example, lavender is what is recommended in your waiting room, and you can also have a sensory adapted dental environment. In terms of the fourth factor that can help in preventing dental anxiety is the community level. At the community level, so at the community level, we must take efforts to promote dental health education, okay, and promote prevention of diseases. Our focus should be children, because children are ones who will carry forward their dental anxiety to their adult life if they develop dental anxiety in their childhood. And we have to focus on prevention to avoid long duration dental appointments later in life. We also have to educate the community about the impact of dental anxiety of individuals' oral health status, oral health attendance, and service delivery. That means we have to tell them that if you don't take care now, okay, in the long run, you may have to have a root canal treatment, which is a long it's a long procedure which is required in the anesthesia. So maybe you want to overcome your dental anxiety and at least come for a dental checkup. We also have to discourage sharing of dental fears and negative experiences within the community. So very very important. For example, you have to tell the mothers not to talk about dental fear to their children, because they will immediately have this subjective fear. So similarly, in the community, if you are having a bad experience, it's always better not to discuss it openly to avoid having dental fear in the community. We also have to discourage reference of dental care as punishment, okay. So you go to a dentist and the dentist will give you an injection. You go to a doctor, the doctor will give you an injection. So this reference has to be to pain, and medical care, dental care has to be removed from the community. And lastly, we have to encourage regular dental visit so that prevention can be stepped up and we can avoid long painful procedures later in life. So this brings us to the end of the session, and I want you to take 5 minutes to recall what we have learned today. And the question that I want to put for you is: can we measure fear? Can we measure fear, and can we measure anxiety? So for anxiety, we have already seen how we can diagnose anxiety. So my question now for you is to think about how we can measure fear. All right, so I have put in two links here. One is from the KKM. Okay, it's a simple worded, mostly for the general population, about dental fear. And for you, if you want to go into more detail of what we have discussed today, you can refer to this article here. It's a review article, and you can get all the relaxation techniques in detail in this particular article. So if you're interested and you want to try out a few. Okay, so that's it from me. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the Google Classroom, or feel free to find me in the clinics, and we can look into your queries with face-to-face discussion in the clinics one-on-one. All right, so that's it from me. Have a good day. Bye.